I gotta tell you how, Mitchell totally freaked me out with a WhatsApp message that said, "You're coming to New Zealand." And nobody knew I was coming yet. So I was like, how does he know? This is very strange. And it happens to be that, see, the world is so small and you're involved with super diverse women, and it's just a treat that we're here together. Can you hear me okay? I know we're having the buzzy mics, but we figured it out. I was so excited about my Britney Spears mic, and now I have my Madonna mic, I guess. But anyway, I am delighted to be here. This feels like home, feels like family. It is nice to be in a room full of people like us. And I was just thrilled to learn more about super diverse women, the work that May is doing, all the CQ TIC work that you're doing, because we've been reading each other's minds from opposite sides of the planet, which is exciting to see. But anyway, so today I'm just gonna share with you a little bit. Oh, that's not me. Oh, I see. See, technology sometimes, how do we fill in space? Were we good? We're good. All right, so I'm gonna share with you a little bit about me, because that's always the best way to experience and share culture, right? So as you've heard already, I am originally from Colombia. And I came to America with a student visa, a suitcase, a pocket translator, and not speaking a word of English. And I didn't come to the US with my family. I was there on my own as a foreign student trying to learn the language. And of course, of all places in America, I ended up in the great state of Texas. I don't know how much you know about Texas. Maybe you've watched a few movies. It's true. That's how it looks like. And especially the mindset and the culture of Texas was quite unique. So, of course, in my case, because I spoke Spanish, the default was, "Lili, are you Mexican?" And that's what I always got. And I was just very confused. I'm like, why am I supposed to be Mexican? So, of course, I proceeded to tell them, no, I'm not Mexican. I am Colombian. And I was so excited and proud to say it. Of course. What do you get when you're from Colombia? You get Pablo Escobar. And I was like, no. Well, now I'm dating myself. When I went to the US, he was alive and well and doing his thing. So yes, it didn't help to be Colombian and be always associated with Pablo Escobar. I was like, I don't understand these people. Why couldn't they go to coffee? Everybody knows Colombian coffee. I'm having this experience in my head, little 17-year-old version of me, like, why is it not something else? It has to be Pablo. Or, the kids these days have it so much easier. Because I didn't have Shakira when I came to the States. Life is easier now for them. They get Shakira and she's cool. And there's so many other cool Colombian things happening, But life still kind of does its funny tricks on you, because now Netflix has me explaining myself all over again with Narcos. Why? I'm like, no, we've been working on this for 30 years, and here we go, Narcos is here. There's narco tours now. You can literally go to Colombia now and go and see, this is the house where Pablo Escobar was living. And everybody's paying money for this thing. Well, I guess it's good for the economy of my country, so that's a good thing. But anyway, so what I started seeing is there's something really funny with this whole cultural thing. People just go into assumptions. Some of them are innocent. Sometimes, and you know what I mean, sometimes people say something, you look at them and you're thinking, oh, that is pretty dumb and stupid. But you don't know if it's endearing or an insult or just ignorance, or all of the above. But even the young version of me was already processing this whole cultural thing. I'm like, what is up with this country, and why are they making all these assumptions and all these labels and all these things? It was my new innocent experience. But just to make it more fun, I spent a year in Australia. And I was in, any Australians here? Aussies? Yes? No? That's fine, we can talk about them. So I went to Deakin University. I was in Melbourne for a whole year, and talk about culture. I had barely learned American Texan English. And I end up in Australia where the trunk becomes the boot. All this, and I discovered very quickly that Marmite is not marmalade or jam, and is to be spread very lightly. I was like, oh, and guess what I got in Australia? Are you Greek? Are you Persian? I'm like, Greek, Persian? I was so confused, why? So this whole journey of culture just became even more complicated. But then I realized that all of this really presented a powerful opportunity. I discovered that there is a cultural gap in the world to fill, and that many times my bicultural, bilingual experience was an advantage. And it presented an opportunity for me to educate and almost be an ambassador of culture wherever I went. And you can choose to do two things when people are misinterpreting you. When I got Pablo Escobar, or whatever other weird thing about who I was supposed to be, you can get really mad, go into your corner and just talk about how stupid they are, or take it upon yourself to be part of the change, to expose them to what's true, and to actually build a constructive conversation that unifies instead of separates. But many times, it's so much easier to stick with our own, especially when there's few of us. This keeps sticking on your arm, so I'm not trying to say that. But when you have the opportunity to fill a cultural gap, we have the responsibility to execute on our cultural advantage when given the option to do so. So all of this journey with culture really has inspired a lot of what I do today. Because this cultural gap, by the way, has validated many things. What is this? That Asian women in Hollywood are not always the dragon lady. That Latinas are not always the sexy mamas. Why do we have to be that, right? There is a reason why in America, tortillas, Mexican tortillas outsell bread in American supermarkets. And that's not because every Mexican in America is buying tortillas. That's because everybody is happily buying tortillas. Guess what? Sushi in American supermarkets outsells subs and sandwiches as well. There is something very interesting happening. There are ethnically inspired things and products that are the new mainstream. And many times we take it for granted because we grew up with the thing, and then somebody else ends up making money with the stuff that we grew up with. I mean, why wasn't somebody from an island the one that discovered coconut water? Do you know who did? Michael Kerbin, a white Jewish guy from New York City, that went to Brazil, tried it for the first time, and said, "Oh, wow, this is amazing. Let's bring it to America." I think all of us, or anyone that came from the Caribbean or an island, is probably beating themselves up against the coconut tree for not being the creators of Vita Coco, a $2.2 billion industry. Sometimes we take it for granted, and it's right in front of our noses. It's part of who we are, it's part of our DNA. This lady, now another one of those cool Colombians that we can call out, Sofia Vergara. She's funny, she's amazing. You know who she is? She is the highest paid actress in television around the world, period. Now, some of us, I gotta confess, including myself at times, Latinos, are like, why is she playing up on the stereotypes? Here we go again. But it's working, so keep working it. She's doing very, very well by elevating and playing up her cultural advantage. By the way, in real life, she doesn't have that funky accent. It's totally part of the role she's playing and owning. And it's delivering value. Here's a couple of other things. Beats. We know the story with Beats. It sold for $3 billion to Apple. You know what Beats is? You look at it and you think, okay, it's headphones. They're actually crappy headphones. Uh-oh, and you're recording. Dr. Dre, I don't mean it. No, seriously, this is what they were told when Beats went to Sony and Bose and some of the other brands to present them as a product. And they kind of looked down on it because the bass levels were just way too off. They were designed for you to enjoy hip-hop music, not like classical music. So it didn't sound okay. And you know why Apple paid $3 billion for it? They didn't buy a headphone company. They bought the cultural equity and value that it brought. There was an entire cultural movement and revolution that came with Beats that increased the valuation at the time of the transaction. It wasn't because it was the best technology. So there are some interesting forces at play. When you look at the top 10 most influential celebrities, according to Forbes, 7 out of 10 are black and brown. And, of course, I had to play it. I'm Latina, I gotta bring it. 3.8 billion views on YouTube and counting. Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee. It wasn't freaking Justin Bieber. It was them.
bringing the authenticity of Puerto Rico. If you look at the music video, it's raw, it's what it is, it's the culture, and it caught fire, and the world is embracing it. Here you go, Despacito. What does this mean? And why? It's not just for us to have fun here. I want you to start thinking differently about what you represent and the cultural advantage that you have, that you were born with because you are blessed to come from where you come from. There is cultural valuation. That all of those stories that I just shared with you and the products and even the Vita Coco story that somebody has activated cultural valuation on, that can turn into a very viable commercial advantage. So, cultural valuation, cultural advantage. And all of this, as I was playing off of my own immigrant experience in America, and when eventually I got into my corporate career, is what has inspired me to do what I do today. Discovering and realizing that, yes, the world's greatest leaders today, especially in a world that is highly diverse and highly connected and highly, colorful like this room, you need to have cultural intelligence in addition to IQ and EQ. And by the way, that is not just by pigmentation. I have met some of the most brilliant multicultural marketers in America that are not one of us. And I'm proud to see them embracing it and studying it and learning it, because this doesn't just come with the last name, Rodriguez or Martinez if you're Latino, or because you come from here or there. It's something that can indeed be acquired. Now, you may be wondering, well, Lili, what is your definition of cultural intelligence? We know that there's some work already happening with CQ-TIC and on ways to start measuring and pushing the boundaries in terms of the ability to be culturally intelligent. I'm not talking about representation. I'm not talking about how many brown people you have on a table. I'm talking about having the capacity to be aware of, understand, and apply cultural competence into everyday business. Many people are aware. Most people are, unless you're living under a rock. Some people are aware and understand. You kind of know the numbers. You see the changing patterns. Oh my gosh, Oakland is becoming so diverse. But it's very different, and only those that truly win and turn it into profits are the ones that make it all the way through to applying it. That's what NIB is doing. We were talking about some of the new products you're launching. That is what it means being culturally intelligent. Aware, understand, and apply cultural competence into everyday business decision making. It's not just for checking off your scorecard for how many diverse slates you have. Is having an equivalent scorecard to looking at how much of your resources and budget you're allocating to growth markets, because you're culturally competent to know that unless you do that, you'll be missing out on 30 or 40% of your segments. And that is just bad business. I'm spending some time on this slide, and I saw some of you taking pictures. This is it. I have been playing with this concept. We've been perfecting it. We've been applying it with different corporations. And anyone can execute on this. But all of us in this room, shame on us if we're not activating our cultural intelligence, because by default, we have it in our blood. And this is not just a brown-black thing. This is also women who happen to be the chief procurement officers of the household and the ones that hold the purse and the wallet, too. So I really had my big revelation moment, and I know many of you are in corporate positions or in traditional, jobs. I was at Johnson & Johnson, and I was there for 10 years. And I'm sharing this with you because it took somebody like me, being often the only one in the room, as May was sharing, to one day just ask the question, if a pharmaceutical drug takes 15 years to go to market, and by the time this drug goes to market, 40% of our patients are going to be ethnic. What is our plan to go after ethnic patients? And I got like crickets around the table. I'm like, are we even testing in clinical trials for the 40% of patients that are going to be benefiting from this drug? Anyway, so it took the asking of the question. But then, and it wasn't my job, I said, great, I'll volunteer and look at the numbers and see what the opportunity is for our business. So I'm like, shoot, what did I sign up for? It's just like a second job. But sometimes we do this just to prove it, to put it on the table. And guess what? If it wasn't because I had taken it upon myself to develop the multicultural case study for the pharmaceutical sector, I would have never in a million years before turning 30 would have been presented to the worldwide chairman of one of the biggest corporations in the planet. It took that proactive desire to make a business difference. Notice, I wasn't asking for, hey, can you give me $10,000 to host the diversity event? I was saying, can't you just give me a few hours and recognize that I'm going to develop a business case that maybe the chairman needs to see? Then you're taken seriously. You earn credibility because what you're bringing forward is value to the business. It's not just, oh, how cute, the Latinas saying the Latinos are important. The Asian girls saying that Asian markets are important. It's endearing, and they won't respect it. Not because they want to be mean, it's because you're busy like hitting the numbers. We're for-profit organizations, most of us. Now, this is how I kind of was able to prove the case very quickly. This is a chart from the United States. What's happening? It's becoming a majority-minority nation. The gray portion is shrinking, as you can see. That is the non-Hispanic white portion of the population. And 100% of the population growth of the United States, it's coming from, ta-da, diverse markets. That means if you are supposed to be in the business of anticipating growth and planning for growth, you tell me where you're going to find a better source of incremental growth than by tapping into growth markets. Duh, basic. You don't need to go to Harvard for that, Mitchell. We get it. It's easy. So, because I am kind of like the nerd that I am, and the folks from the embassy have been making fun of me. It's like, you've been studying the New Zealand census? I'm like, yes, I have. It's public information. Ta-da! Guess what? Oh, it's coming later. Wait, hold on. What do you think it's going to be for New Zealand? You'll see. There's other patterns at play, so I'll get to that. And now I opened it and closed the doors again. I was like, Lili, come on. Don't do that. Here's another pattern that's happening in America. Millennials, which everybody's saying millennials are so important, almost half of them are already ethnic today. We don't have to wait for like 2030. That's just a default. The youthful part of our population is already very diverse. And in our case, in the States, 74% of workforce growth is coming from Hispanics. It's like, whoa. All right. And in addition to that, all of it combined basically gives you the one source of growth. Now, at J&J, when I discovered these numbers, guess what I did too? This is very important. I don't know if you're doing it or have thought about it. Nobody asked me to create an organization for Hispanics. We happen to be the largest minority, so I leveraged that and said, hey, I feel kind of lonely doing this whole numbers thing. How about we just create a Hispanic organization for the professionals inside Johnson & Johnson and just come together? But not come together as a social club that is going to celebrate with tortillas Cinco de Mayo at the cafeteria, but actually be a meaningful business group. So be careful. Don't fall into the trap of creating the women's group or the Asian group or the whatever group that is just there for the good food and the celebrations, because we would not be taken seriously. So what we did is created a business case, created a group that basically put on the map all the stuff that we're doing. By the way, Hola is celebrating its 15-year anniversary next week. I'm going to be at the world headquarters at Johnson & Johnson to kind of be like the proud mama of my quinceañera. That's the sweet 15 of the Latinos, whatever. You ask a Hispanic friend if you have one to explain what that is. But, and I'll be there to celebrate with all of them because now Hola is becoming a global organization for J&J. Aggregating the groups with a business purpose in mind, not just to be a social club so we feel good and warm with each other. All right. There are cultural economics at play, as you're seeing it. And I'm going to get to you, which is really what inspired my company. But who cares? I'm not here to talk about me. Let's talk about you. What does this mean for New Zealand? Now I'm opening the curtain again. Dun, dun, dun. This is you. Okay, but that chart wasn't just so exciting. As I was looking, I'm like, wait, why don't they plot it like we did in the States? But I took it upon myself to do it in Excel. I'm like, it's the same data. Trust me, believe me. I'm sounding like our president. Sorry. Oh, that's for another. Trust me. The other president, right? You get me. Okay, so this is what it looks like for you. 100% of the population growth is coming from diverse segments. Ta-da! We have something in common. But it's so easy for us to keep segmenting Maori, Pacifica, Asian, and the segment of the segment. The power in the unity and what it means to look at the diverse segment as one cohesive body. It will be really dumb if you deliberately ignore 30 to 40% of your market. That just makes no business sense. But that's how we need to start talking about ourselves and why it matters to have one of us in the room to make decisions for R&D, for innovation, for marketing, for financing, for whatever it is, for attracting talent. We share the same population pattern. And this was so exciting for me because I was like, oh, Lord, please let the stats work. Let the stats work. When I look at, yay, it works. Which gives you more fuel. And you should feel excited about this. But guess what? Because, yes, I am a nerd and I'm crunching your own numbers. Here's the thing. We know that the youth segments are very important because that is the future workforce. We know that STEAM and technology and entrepreneurship are important to foster it amongst the young portions of our population. When you look at the age distribution, let me make it easier for you. 50% of the diverse segments of New Zealand are millennial. They're young. Versus about 30% for the rest. Let me make it easier for you so you remember the number. On average, all of the diverse segments in New Zealand have an average age of 25 years of age. Maori is the youngest at 23, versus the population norm being 40. So if you're betting and investing in the future, if you're thinking about the long-term value of customers, let's be black and white, this is not community service. Customers, buying power, who's going to be getting married, who's going to be buying a house, who's going to be having babies. You compound population growth with its youthfulness, that is the future. That is where you put your money. Any smart investor is trying to anticipate the growth trend. Put some money in Bitcoin because it's going to explode. My husband is like obsessed with it. He keeps like, oh, I just put another $50. And he's like playing like chips with it. I'm like, what are you doing? Trying to anticipate the growth trend. But here's the concerning part, and I'm just giving you a tiny little tease with data. We do run big data analytics in my company, and I wasn't going to do a full-blown study, but we know that technology and jobs in technology are important. It's the future, you name it. Here's what happens when you look at how people feel towards jobs in technology according to an N value, or a universe of 32,000, for the overall versus women. Women are feeling 3 times more like put off by careers in technology. I'll be very curious to see what it looks like across different ethnic segments, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we are not, again, preparing the segments that mean and represent growth, or making sure that people are not disenchanted with the careers that are important for the future, it's just bad for everybody's economy. That's not just for us, or that's just not the super diverse agenda. That is the country's agenda. So what all of this means, and please feel free to borrow it, is a very bold statement, but this is what I tell my clients. It is mathematically impossible for any company in these kind of diverse conditions and with these patterns in population growth and all, it is mathematically impossible for them to achieve their full potential in growth and market share without fully tapping into diverse segments. Period. You prove me otherwise with numbers, not with opinion. It is mathematically impossible. Now, what does this all mean? It means that there is ROI behind why super diverse women is important and why you matter to be in the room and why it's important to reprioritize the way we define and look at these markets. But here's what is even more dangerous, and we need to be part of the solution. It's not just about the ROI. Sometimes, and most of the time, again, when I'm working with my clients, I show them their return on ignored, which literally is the quantifying how much money you're leaving on the table by doing nothing. Nothing. I bet our friends from NIB can do the math of what happened before and after you launched those specific products that you have launched for some of the Asian markets. It is just good business. It's not an altruistic mission. I am tired of people putting diversity equals community service or helping the disadvantaged or like the corporate social responsibility project. Diversity equals growth. Diversity equals ROI. And if you choose not to, then it turns into return on ignored. So good luck. Somebody else is going to catch on and you'll be playing catch up later on. So there is cultural intelligence that is an advantage, that has cultural economics at play. You get my spiel here. But I want to leave you with something very, very important. The numbers are there. But the numbers alone are not going to do it. Look at me. I've been here for like 3 days and just crunching a few numbers that were available on the internet, was able to draw some very simple conclusions. Numbers have an important story to tell, but they rely on you to give them a voice. And many times it's people that are wired like you and me, that have very unique backgrounds like you and me, that need to have the audacity and the courage to bring them up to begin with. It does us no good to start hitting those representation numbers if we make it into the room, into the boardrooms, and forget where we come from and don't bring up the numbers when we have the position of power to do so. That is really sad. Really, really sad. Because then you're not exercising your full cultural intelligence and advantage in the workplace. And now imagine the opposite. In my case, I ended up in front of the chairman of the corporation and him asking me, Lili, what should we do? When I was like, oh my gosh, like my boss hadn't even presented to the executive committee ever at that time. But I did, because putting the numbers forward gets you recognized, gives you credibility, graduates you from being like the cute Latina advocating for Latinos, in my case. So now I uncovered the great superpower. As Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. And hopefully today you have realized that you have a superpower to execute. You do have the cultural intelligence because of who you are already. As a woman, as a diverse woman, as somebody that is in tune with diversity to begin with. It doesn't come by pigmentation, remember. It's just by exposure and acknowledgement and applying it. So here's a couple of ways that you can go on and apply that superpower. Very simple, but meaningful. At least this is the stuff that has worked for me. So I'm just sharing from my journey. Take it, make it yours. Number 1, know your power in numbers. Rewrite the narrative. The information is out there. So next time we're advocating for that new position, or you're doing budget reviews. A lot of companies are doing, 2018 planning or whatever it is they're doing in financial allocations. Know your numbers, because guess what? It's very hard to argue up against the numbers. And I often say, if somebody that is equipped with the numbers is still making the bad decision of ignoring the growth segments, that is personal bias getting in the way of good decision making, which is just dumb. It really is. But at least you've done your part of the homework in knowing the numbers. Number 2, unify. What did I do? I created my own coalition with Ola inside a giant corporation like Johnson & Johnson. But I was very clear with us as a body, and I said, I refuse to be the one throwing the Cinco de Mayo party at the cafeteria, we're going to be the ones that are going to be crunching the numbers to prove how powerful we are as a market. So unified with a deliberate purpose that delivers value, not just to socialize and feel warm and fuzzy amongst ourselves. We do need to do this, but when you go back, unify with an intentional purpose. By the way, some of my biggest allies, we kind of goes with this one about building alliances, are people that are not from my community. You have to find those. My absolute best mentors and champions have been incredible white men. They're amazing. I love them. Some of them try to pretend to be Latino. I'm like, that's cute. You gotta build alliances. If you're the smartest person in the room, that is really concerning. That's probably not very smart. So push for that and build those alliances. So when you have the numbers, you've created the body, and then surround yourself with some of these other champions and mentors to elevate your story. It's no longer about you. You have a coalition around. Makes it very powerful. Then ask for money. I don't know about you. I'll speak about me, my upbringing and culture. But for us, it's like so taboo to ask for money. We don't ask for anything. You know, especially in, Hispanic culture, you're taught to work really hard, kind of keep your head down. You don't challenge authority. And because you're doing your work, somebody will notice, just keep doing it. So you don't ask. We're very shy about asking. Even as an entrepreneur and business owner to this day, I kind of struggle with that. It's like, no, I'm going to self-fund my company. It's like, why? Everybody else is like with a lame idea on a napkin getting millions at Silicon Valley. I'm like, I should do that. But no, I'm going to be raising my own money from my own pocket. That makes no sense. I have a philosophy, and I've seen it at play in many corporations and in many places. Good ideas generate budgets. And they generate budgets especially if they're backed up by the numbers. So we're kind of seeing a journey here. It's not just you. You're coming in with the numbers. You have a body of people that are working on it and have validated it. Now you have this coalition of an alliance that has given you the head nod that it is important. So when you come and ask for the money, it's like you have the whole, it's very hard to say no when it's all like that. You know how many times, back to my clients all the time, because I feel like an evangelist in those hallways all the time, well, but we already allocated our marketing budgets and we didn't plan for this. It was like, so you are comfortable ignoring 30% of the growth? That makes absolutely no sense. Here's the why. Here's the 3 markets where you need to do it. LA is 50% Hispanic. Did you guys know that? Los Angeles is 50% Hispanic. So are you comfortable just ignoring half of the city? A city that has like 9 million people in it? That's just crazy. So then, boop, the budget unlocks magically. All right. Because you're showing them how they cannot meet their numbers for which their bonuses depend on unless we're taking seriously. So ask for money. Ask. But it's not just to ask for the nice diversity community service thing. We are so used to thinking small. Oh, can we have $5,000 for this thing we're doing with this group? No! Can we get 30% out of the total budget in marketing because we represent 30% of the market? Oh, that's a huge number. Okay, fine, half, 15%. That's still significant. So that you start playing for that fair share, but knowing the numbers is what gives you power. And then the last thing, all of this theory, the white paper, the PowerPoint, the alliance, means nothing unless you get stuff done. We talk a good talk, and we get all rallied up in these events, and, we feel so good and invigorated amongst each other. I'm going to pick on May for a second. We had a lunch today. Literally, I hadn't even made it to the hotel, and our emails were already going back and forth of the stuff we're going to do. Do. So you are here for a reason. You're already dialed up in your ability to recognize cultural intelligence as an advantage. Just the fact that you're sitting here means that. So now that we're kind of rewriting the rules of what activating cultural intelligence means as a lever for growth, the big question is, what are you going to do when you get back to your organizations to rewrite the story of why we matter? And that is that ultimate superpower. And because we're amongst women, I had to call out the super diverse Wonder Women in the room to go out, exercise that advantage, make a difference, and prove them wrong. Thank you.